You know, sometimes you just get those shows in wrestling where things just don't seem to come across as well as you really feel they should. And so your opinion on something is a little bit more negative than you really feel it usually would be. And I don't know what it was about this show, but most of the segments on this show just really didn't come across to me as good as maybe they usually would do. I don't know why. If you have any thoughts on this show in the comment section below, then go ahead, post them. If you want, guys, go subscribe to my personal channel, youtube.com/MrParkin01, as I'm going to try to be doing a couple of audios and stuff like that. I've got this podcast going on there, which I really want to get going. If you want to listen to it, go to the YouTube channel, MrParkin01. Also, go check me out on Twitter, Daniel_Parkin, where I'll be posting, wrestling, football, and general thoughts as I do on the podcast. And also, I've made a Mr. Parkin podcast Facebook page, which I'll also link in the description box below. So I'm really looking forward to the prospect of putting out a podcast, putting out small audios rather than videos like I used to do. So I would appreciate your support, and go subscribe to that channel, and let's get started with this NXT review now the shameless plugging is out the way. So the Ascension beat some jobbers again, which funnily enough the crowd just seems to love every time. I don't really know why, because we're essentially seeing the same thing over and over again with the Ascension, and for me personally it's not very interesting. The main question for me now is, when will they just abandon these NXT Tag Team Championship belts and end up being on Raw and SmackDown? Because surely, after the pedestal these guys have been put on, after being champions for, I believe, 292 days or something like that, and just defeating every single one that comes in front of them, surely there is no way these guys can do a job after being built up this high. The only real thing they can do is have them, abandon the belts or whatever you call it, and then have a tournament to crown new champions further down the line. Whether or not NXT do that or not, I don't know, but it's the only real way they can, get the Ascension to go up to the ranks of WWE, Raw and SmackDown, while not making them look too weak on the way out. Because even if the second best tag team on NXT, which could be one of many tag teams, beats them, they will look pretty weak on the way out, which is not really the way you want it to be. So Tyler Breeze, with a broken freaking finger, motherfucker, defeated Mojo Rawley in about 30 seconds. And you know what? As much as this segment made Tyler Breeze look smart and also very tough, etc., I couldn't help but think that how much they made the Mojo Rawley character just look like a jobber jabroni, which is the last thing this Mojo Rawley character really needs, seeing as creative doesn't really seem to have much for him anymore. Don't have Tyler Breeze beat him in 30 seconds, come on! At least have the match be competitive, at least have Mojo Rawley look decent in defeat. I don't understand why they had Tyler Breeze just go through him in 30 seconds. You've got Tyler Breeze, who's a little tiny guy compared to Mojo Rawley, and he's beating him in 30 seconds. It just doesn't really make much logical sense to me, despite the fact the way they actually booked this with Mojo Rawley being distracted and Tyler Breeze winning that way. It just left a bad taste in my mouth. That's all. I really felt on this week's edition of NXT it would have made such a great statement by NXT to say women's wrestling matters in this in this brand if they put Summer Rae versus Charlotte for the NXT Championship in the main event slot, which I felt this deserved, because on this show, this was the match which had plenty of story, plenty of build, strong characters in it, and they put the match right in the middle of the show where it didn't really seem to matter. I don't know, I mean, this would have been a good opener, in my opinion. At least that would have been the first thing people saw. It would have been the most important thing people saw. I really would have liked it if they put this in the main event. In my opinion, this match maybe would have just come off a lot better than it actually did if it was actually booked in a spot where I felt it actually deserved to be. Just a little thing I noticed there, and something that really would have set NXT out from any other wrestling promotion out there, really. And all of a sudden, Charlotte has started smiling and playing to the crowd, so I guess now the BFFs are broken up. I guess she's a babyface. Yeah, I guess she's a babyface. And, this is another match on the show which just seemed to disappoint. I understand that they were going for storytelling over, in-ring move variety and stuff like that here, but I think at a couple of points in the match, the fans were chanting boring, and they were doing a Mexican wave, so they weren't really too interested in the match. And to be honest with you, It may have been due to the fact that Natalya and Charlotte had such a good match at NXT TakeOver that maybe this match just didn't come across as well as it really should have done. But for me, it just, like I said, just was a little bit disappointing in my opinion. The Charlotte winning just kind of came out of nowhere a little bit, and it didn't really feel like a very satisfying ending. And I was also kind of surprised that Sasha Banks, who's been involved with both Summer Rae and Charlotte, in the last year or so, didn't really seem to have any bearing on this match when it seemed like she was being placed in this feud to actually have some effect on this match and feud going forward. I mean, will this be the end of it? I don't really know. The babyface has now gone over, which I guess would signify the end of this feud. Maybe Summer Rae was brought in just to put over Charlotte as the NXT Women's Champion. I don't really know what they're going to be doing with this now, but you would think now the next logical choice would either be Bayley or Sasha Banks, excuse me. Yeah, but this NXT Women's Championship match, again, I don't know why. It just really seemed to disappoint and just not really, I just really couldn't get into it.
Please welcome the Vaudevillains, the best damn tag team of all time. Oh, here they are now.
Oh, the Vaudevillains, what a great tag team they are as they face the Lucha Libres, Kalisto and Sin Cara in a match this week on NXT. With the Vaudevillains gimmick, I believe they're supposed to be heel. They've got villains in their name, which would suggest they are bad guys. But really, with the way you're presenting them, the way they're acting, and the way the crowd is reacting to these guys, they're not going to be heels, let's face it. The crowd is going to get massively behind the Vaudevillains over time, and then you're probably going to have to call them Vaude Heroes, or something like that. Let's face it, because this is a very entertaining gimmick. It's why me and NJ did vignettes on the damn thing and put them on this bloody YouTube channel, because we thought they'd be entertaining and something different for you guys. But I don't know what it was about this match as well. It just... Usually I'd be very into these tag team matches, but I don't know why. It was just another match that didn't really do it for me this week. I don't really know why. Maybe it was just me. Maybe I'm just tired or something. But again, I thought this match was going to be really good. And maybe I built this up in my head as a better match than it really had any warrant to be. But it just was another match I really couldn't get into. And, and Kalisto and Sin Cara getting the win. I don't mind that because I guess they do need to put Kalisto and Sin Cara over as a tag team. For some point down the line. The Vaudevillains have already won quite a lot of matches and have already gained quite a lot of momentum and are already quite over. So having them lose here wasn't necessarily a bad thing in a pretty competitive match. Having Kalisto and Sin Cara getting the win helps establish them as a somewhat legit tag team on NXT, which they need quite badly. So in our main event of the evening, we had our NXT champion Adrian Neville versus Rusev. Of course, they had Lana out there doing a promo segment before she actually advised Rusev to go into the ring and crush Adrian Neville. But maybe if they had some British references in there or something, because Adrian Neville is from Newcastle, England, maybe if they had some British references in the promo, it would have helped Lana's promo a little bit, and at least given the reason for these two to face off from a storyline psychology standpoint. I don't know. But one of the reasons I was interested in this match was because we've seen Adrian Neville face, Sami Zayn a couple of times, Tyson Kidd a couple of times. We've seen him face, Justin Gabriel many times, I think once or twice now. And they're all pretty small guys that are kind of similar in style, guys that are kind of similar in size. And this is one of the reasons why I was interested in seeing Rusev face off of Adrian Neville. It was a different kind of opponent for Adrian Neville than the usual NXT smaller guy, his size kind of guy. And it meant there was different storytelling aspects and different, character traits and different in-ring psychology and crowd psychology you could really incorporate in this match. It just gives Adrian Neville a little bit of a different feel. It makes Adrian Neville look better to go up against a bigger guy. It makes Rusev look better because he looks strong against a smaller guy. And this match was going along fine. I was, quite happy with the way this match was plodding along. You had Tyler Breeze causing a disqualification, and that meant that Adrian Neville got clashed. So on this show, you had the storyline between Tyler Breeze and Adrian Neville, kind of take a bit of a hit in the sense that Tyler Breeze has got through his match with Mojo Rawley fine by being smart and tough at the same time, I guess. And then you've had Adrian Neville pretty much being beaten up by one of the toughest guys in WWE right now, and that is Rusev. So the storyline played out quite well here. It was one of a couple of storylines they did on this show, but I think this was probably the best segment of the night, personally, in my opinion. Just the way they incorporated Rusev, even though I would have found it better if maybe Rusev got the victory here, via a distraction by Tyler Breeze. I think losing by DQ was a little bit stupid, especially seeing as, Rusev is a very hot character on WWE TV right now. I understand you want to put over your NXT champion, but you've got NXT down here and Raw and SmackDown up here. And if you're the hottest character on Raw and SmackDown, you really should be going over a guy down here in NXT. Just in my opinion, especially at times like this, when the character is very hot. If you have any thoughts on this show, please let me know down in the comment section below. Was I just being a negative Nancy in this review? Was I just overly tired and not really into the matches because of that? You tell me down in the comment section. Like I said, stuff about this show just seemed to be off this week. I don't know, maybe if I was a bit more awake, maybe if I was a bit more in tune, I would have enjoyed this show a little bit more. But, sometimes you get shows like these and it's only an hour, like Daddy has said many times, and we will move on to next week where hopefully it'll be better. It's a shame, really, because I had quite good expectations for this week. And on a card with Adrian Neville versus Rusev, the Vaudevillains versus Sin Cara and Kalisto, and Summer Rae versus Charlotte in a very built-up Women's Championship match, I would have thought this show would have been better and came across a lot more feeling like a bigger show personally. But it just didn't do that, in my opinion. Thank you very much for watching this review. If you have, make sure you go subscribe to the Mr. Parkin podcast at youtube.com/MrParkin01, basically my personal channel. Check me out on Twitter, where you can also hear me talk about NXT as well, at Daniel_Parkin. And go check out the Mr. Parkin Facebook page to be updated on all the audios and all the things and all my links, etc. I'll put that in the description box as well. Thank you very much for watching, and goodbye.